Some moments don't just test your strength, they test your faith. There are battles you prepare for your entire life. And then, there are battles you never thought you would face. On that day, David stood still, not advancing, not retreating, just standing. Not because he was weak, not because he lacked courage, but because, for the first time, he felt something he could not control: fear. And what happened next would not only shape his destiny, but change the future of a nation. David was not supposed to be here, not in a battlefield like this, not standing between armies. He was known as many things: a shepherd, a musician, a boy with quiet faith, but not yet a warrior. And yet, there he stood, between history and obscurity. He had heard the stories of kings rising, of men chosen, of destinies written before birth. And somewhere deep inside, he believed he was part of something greater. But belief is easy when you are far from the battle. Because before the crown, before the victories, before the songs written in his name, there was a moment, hidden in silence, a moment where David almost walked away. A figure stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, each step pressing into the earth like a declaration. He was more than a man. He was a presence, a shadow that swallowed courage, a voice that silenced armies. And suddenly, the battlefield changed. Not physically, but psychologically. Men who had fought wars now avoided eye contact. Men who had faced death now feared standing still. David saw it all. The hesitation, the silence, the invisible surrender. And then, he felt it too. You don't belong here. This is not your fight. You are not ready. He remembered simpler days. The wind over open land. The quiet rhythm of solitude. The certainty of small victories. Back then, fear had a different shape. A lion, a bear, a storm in the night. But this was different. This was not just danger. This was doubt. The battlefield was silent. But inside his mind, everything was collapsing. He looked down, and for the first time, his hands betrayed him. They trembled, not from exhaustion, not from injury, but from something deeper: uncertainty. Every thought began to turn against him. What if you fail? What if they were wrong about you? What if you're just ordinary? They saw the hesitation, and in their silence was judgment. Some pitied him, some dismissed him, some had already decided this story would end in defeat. Just one step, small, almost invisible. But in that step was a decision: to leave, to disappear, to return to a life where no one expected anything. And for a moment, David considered it. He imagined walking away. No shame, no failure, just absence. And in that moment, fear almost won. But something unexpected happened. Not outside. Nothing changed on the battlefield. The enemy was still there. The fear was still real. But inside David, something moved. A memory. Sharp, clear, not of victory, but of presence. He remembered. He had not been alone. Moments no one saw. Battles no one recorded. But they mattered. Because in those moments, he was not abandoned. You have faced fear before, and you did not stand alone. His breathing slowed. Not perfectly, but enough. His hands steadied. Not because fear disappeared, but because something else became stronger. Trust, not in himself, but in something beyond himself. And in that moment, David understood something profound. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward. Despite it, David stepped forward. Not rushed, not dramatic, just deliberate. One step, and everything changed. Mockery filled the air. Dismissal, contempt. To everyone watching, this was already over. Small, unremarkable, almost meaningless. But in his hand, it carried something else. Belief. Time slowed. Sound faded. One movement. One decision. One act of faith. And in that instant, everything paused. The earth trembled. But this time, it was not fear. It was the collapse of impossibility. No one spoke because no one understood. What they had just witnessed was not strength, not strategy, not luck. It was something deeper. A moment where fear was confronted and did not win. He was still the same person, still human, still capable of fear, but something had changed. He had crossed a line, the line between doubt and action. That day was never about defeating a giant. It was about defeating something far more dangerous, the voice inside that tells you to stop, because the greatest battles are not fought in fields. They are fought within. And sometimes, the difference between defeat and destiny is just one step forward. If this story spoke to you, maybe it's time to face your own giant. The moment should have ended there. Victory, noise, triumph. But something strange happened. There was no sound, no cheers, no movement, no breath. Because what they saw did not match what they believed. A giant does not fall. Not like that. Not to someone like him. And David did not celebrate. Because in that moment, he realized something terrifying. The battle was not over. The giant was gone. But the eyes remained. Thousands of them, watching, measuring, judging. Who is he? How did he do that? Was this luck or something else? And suddenly, David felt it again. Not fear of the enemy, but fear of expectation. What happens now? What if I can't do it again? What if this was the only moment? This fear was worse, because before, he could walk away unnoticed. Everyone was watching. They didn't see a boy anymore. They saw a symbol, a miracle, a sign, a future. And that was the problem, because David knew something no one else did. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a fraud. That hesitation, that doubt, that almost step backward. No one saw that, but he remembered, and it haunted him. If they knew, if they saw that moment, they wouldn't believe in you. And just like that, a new battle began, not against giants, but against identity. They lifted him, praised him, spoke his name, but every word felt heavier than the last, because inside, a Lee was forming. You have to be strong. You can't show weakness. You can't be afraid again. And slowly, David began to believe it. And that belief was more dangerous than any giant, because it separated him from truth. No crowds, no voices, no expectations, just silence. The same hands that trembled, the same hands that acted. And suddenly, the question returned. Was it really me? Was it something else? A detail, small, almost invisible, but now impossible to ignore. There was a moment, just before action, where fear did not disappear. It was replaced by something deeper, something not his own. And then, David understood. The victory was never his. The courage was never his. Even the moment was not his. He was part of it, but not the source. And suddenly, everything changed again. Because if the strength was not his, then the pressure was not his either. David stood again, but this time, not as someone trying to prove something, not as someone trying to live up to expectations, but as someone who understood his role, not to be perfect, but to be willing. That day was never about a giant. It was never about strength. It was never even about courage. It was about something far more subtle. The moment when a person realizes they are not enough and chooses to step forward anyway. Because the truth is, your greatest fear is not failure. It is the moment you realize you cannot do it alone, and you have to choose whether to step forward or step back. So if you're standing in that moment right now, frozen, doubting, afraid, maybe this is your battlefield, and maybe this is your step. The story should have been simple. A boy defeats a giant. The people rejoice. A hero is born. And for a while, that's exactly what happened. They spoke his name with awe. They sang about his courage. They told the story, as if it had always been meant to happen. David the fearless. David the chosen. David, the one who never hesitated. And slowly, the story replaced the truth. Because no one told what really happened that day. No one spoke about the moment. He almost walked away. And David never corrected them. There is a burden that comes with being seen as strong. You are no longer allowed to be weak. He tried to speak once, tried to tell someone what he felt, but the words never came out. Because how do you explain that the hero they admire was afraid? If they knew, if they saw the truth, they would lose faith. So he chose silence. And in that silence, the secret grew. The battles didn't stop. They changed. No longer fought in valleys, but in expectations, in identity, in perception. And, without realizing it, David faced a new giant, not made of flesh, not visible, but far more dangerous. The fear of being exposed. What if, one day, they see it? The doubt, the hesitation, the weakness. What if the story breaks, and suddenly, the boy who defeated a giant felt smaller than ever before? There were now two versions of him. The one the world saw, strong, unshaken, certain, and the one inside, questioning, remembering, afraid. And the distance between them grew, day by day, battle by battle, expectation by expectation, until one question remained. Which one is real? Be strong. Lead. Win again. Don't fail. The voices never stopped. Even in silence, they echoed. And for the first time since the battlefield, David felt something familiar. Fear. But this time, there was no giant to face. No clear enemy. No single moment of action. Just a slow, constant pressure. And then, it hit him. The greatest danger was never fear itself. It was pretending it didn't exist. Because the moment he tried to become fearless, he stopped being real. And when he stopped being real, he lost the very thing that carried him through the first battle. Dependence, trust, surrender. David stood again, not in front of an army, but in front of himself. No audience, no expectations, no story to protect, just truth. You were afraid. You are still afraid. And that's not the problem. This time, he didn't fight the fear. He didn't hide it. He didn't run from it. He acknowledged it. And in doing so, he removed its power. Because fear loses control when it is no longer hidden. And that's when David changed again. Not into a warrior, not into a hero, but into something greater. Someone who understood his strength was never about being fearless, but about being honest. That day, when David faced his greatest fear, was not just the day he defeated a giant. It was the day he began a journey of facing something far more difficult, himself. Because the truth is, you don't face fear once. You face it again, and again, and again, at every level, in every season, in every identity. So if you think your battle ended, it didn't. It just changed shape. And maybe, right now, you're not facing a giant. You're facing something invisible. And that is the real fight.